And with that, we welcome you to Iowa City. Dave Refson, Jerry DiNardo, and Howard Griffith, the penultimate stop of our tour through the Big Ten. We're, of course, in the shadow of Kinnick Stadium and the great Heisman Trophy winner here at Iowa, Niall Kinnick, as we prepare to watch the Hawkeyes. They have been an interesting team, no doubt, this offseason, in large part because of all the discussion surrounding the offense. As we prepare to watch them today, I'm guessing that's the first place you guys are interested in looking.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. That's the big story. I think people may underestimate how much coaches and players will respond to the kind of criticism. You know, Brian Ferentz he's a veteran coach right now, right? And he's going to respond to all the criticism. Yeah. I believe the hardest thing to do in college football is to call plays on game day. That's Brian's job. But I believe we'll see Brian and the offensive players respond to the criticism.
Yeah, you talk about their production last year. They really weren't able to move the ball offensively, but they went out and got Erick, right, who last year on this tour, when he was still at Michigan, I thought had an opportunity to be the best tight end in all of the Big Ten. He has that type of athleticism. Unfortunately, he got banged up and we weren't able to see him. He's now at Iowa. Caleb Brown, a player from Ohio State that's transferred in, really was buried on the depth chart there. Now has an opportunity to be a big-time star, big-time player. So I'm looking to see if some of the people that they have been able to attract from the transfer portal to their program can help this offense start to move the ball the way they need to.
Right, and Cade McNamara is another obvious guy that came through the portal. I think maybe not so obvious is this offensive line this year will be more typical of a Iowa offensive line. I don't think last year was typical of an offensive line.
Well, it's not even last year, right? We're talking about a couple of years.
You're right.
So,
and it's 2 years in the making. Yeah. I think they'll be better.
Right, and part of the issue that has then caused is a program that historically has been able to run the ball pretty well, right? I mean, this has been a good rushing team, and you've looked at them the last couple of years, and they just haven't been able to run at all. It got slightly better at times. It felt like last year they've had a couple of backs emerge, and so maybe they're able to carry a bit of that momentum forward. But at that point, then, they became reliant on, can we throw the ball? And the answer, unfortunately for them, was a resounding no.
I think one thing that's not going to change a bit is the way they practice, right? Yeah. I mean, they practice to get their offensive line better. We've seen them do certain drills that we don't see anyone else do with the offensive line. So if we think we're going to see any surprises in the way they approach things today, I don't think that's going to be accurate. But I think we're going to see a much better team.
I think you brought up a great point at the top, the fact that they want to respond. These are prideful coaches, right? Prideful players. And the criticism was huge. I mean, what they went through and how people kind of critique what they were doing offensively. And it's tough, particularly when on the defensive side of the football, you play so well year in and year out. It was almost, you felt like all you needed to do was just be average offensively, and they would have been in a much better position.
Yeah, I do think the offensive coaches, Howard, to your point, always have the benefit of Phil Parker's defense. Yeah. They're always going to be solid. They're always going to be good. And the schedule's good. This is one of the better schedules in the Big Ten, with crossover games being the way they are, non-conference. They're well poised to be much improved this year.
They are. I mean, the defense is staggeringly good. Frankly, there are only 3 teams that scored more than 13 points against them last year. When you think of this day and age of college football and to only give up more than 13 points 3 times, it really is amazing. Now, they've got some guys they've got to replace, right? I mean, they had some big-time production gone. Jack Campbell, Riley Moss, Lucas Van Ness, who ended up being a first-round pick. But I think there's always this feeling when we come here of they're going to be good there. And the reason they're going to be good is because of the scheme. And, frankly, I think they tend to attract really good defensive players, too, because who wouldn't want to play in this defense for Phil Parker?
Right. I think it's a scheme, but you mentioned Phil Parker. I also think during recruiting, when Phil sits down with some of the defensive players that they're recruiting and shows them what he's done and what he can do for them as individual players, it works.
Yeah, and I think the coaches still have to get a lot of credit, particularly the defensive guys, right? Because when you're playing as well as you are for as many years as you've been playing at a high level and the offense is not where it needs to be, that can cause a quick divide in a locker room. And I don't think they had that issue here. And that goes to Coach Ferentz and all of the other coaches and obviously the players to be able to fight through that. But this is a new year, so I'm hoping to see a team that can be more explosive on the offensive side.
Really interested to see what this looks like today. The dichotomy is very clear when you come to Iowa. So we'll be watching the offense, report back here over the next hour as to what we see with the Hawkeyes. The offense under the microscope in Iowa City, a unit that finished second in the Big Ten in scoring in 2020, has hit the skids since then. Last year's team was dead last in the Power 5 in yards and third down conversion percentage. 4 individual players in college football scored more touchdowns than the 19 that the Iowa offense totaled in 13 games. Offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz working under a new contract, which dictates that the Hawks must average at least 25 points per game for him to keep his job. He's with Jerry.
Coach, play calling college football to me is the toughest job there is. You and I share that. With it comes a lot of pressure, a lot of criticism, and you've had your share of both. How do you deal with it?
That's a great question. I think, as you said, right, anybody in this club understands what comes with it. I would just say that if you're a competitor, if you like competing, if you like going out there and putting yourself out there, it's the job, right? It comes with the territory. And I think if you want to be good at anything, if you want to accomplish anything, and if you want to do anything significant or meaningful, you have to understand that there's going to be eyes on you. And if you call plays, there's only one of two things that can happen. You can be really smart or you can be really dumb. But the longer you do it, the more I think what you really understand is none of that matters. I got great advice from Greg Davis about 7-8 years ago, is when he was our play caller. And I asked him the same question. I said, Greg, how do you do it? At that time, he had become a lightning rod, wasn't a super popular guy. And here I am, just a young guy on the outside saying, looks like a lot of unfair criticism in my opinion. At the time, thought he was a pretty tremendous coach. And he just said, gave me some advice that stuck with me. He said, what I try to remember is when I go to bed at night, my job is to put us in position to win and give the players a chance. And if I feel like I've done that, then I sleep just fine. I think the hard part about doing what we do is when you don't feel like you've done that, there's no pressure, there's no criticism in the world that can compare to your inner monologue.
Right. So during your off season, you study the tapes, and
sure,
for people that don't know cut-ups, you watch the same play over and over again, not necessarily as the game flows. What do you have to improve? What has to change after watching the cut-ups and watching the game tape?
Sure. Well, like every year, right, you want to go back and you want to assess what you did well, what you didn't do well. And unfortunately, some years, it's hard to find the things you did well, and you see the things that you didn't do well. And then the first question you have to ask yourself is, all right, if we turn over every stone here, number one is what we're doing sound. Are we giving the players a chance to be successful? And if the system is sound, if the scheme is sound, right, then the next question is, how do we do better? And typically those are going to come down to fundamental things. So the emphasis really in the offseason is let's make sure everything's sound. I feel like we had a good offseason, cleaned some things up, made sure we had a good plan coming into March. And then since March, the emphasis has been on execution. And I think the thing that gets lost in coaching a little bit, especially nowadays, everything's scheme, and scheme is important. But at the end of the day, coaches don't win games, schemes don't win games, players win games. Are we making sure that we're doing things that our players can execute? And are we giving them the tools and the coaching and the repetitions to be able to go out and execute in those pressure situations? So emphasis really since watching those cut-ups is how can we teach better? How can we coach better? How can we give our players better tools to go out there and be successful, when the games start?
I'm really interested in the portal, maybe in a different way that most people are. Cade McNamara comes in from Michigan.
Sure.
He was in the playoffs 2 years in a row, played at a great program. How much do you ask and exchange ideas with him about his previous experiences?
Yeah, of course. I think that's more what I've learned about the portal is it's really reverted me back to being in the NFL and dealing with free agency, right? And when you're bringing in veteran players, guys that have experience, one thing that I've been pleasantly surprised with, really, I'd make two observations about those guys. One, they have very intentional and well thought out input, right? They've experienced college football, whether it's off the field, on the field, scheme, building, culture, whatever those things are. They have valuable experiences that are real. So you'd be foolish not to pick their brains, ask them questions, and ask for input. And then two, what I've seen is, quite frankly, something I was very concerned about. You don't know what introducing those variables to an established team and locker room is going to do. And what I've seen is it's been the total opposite of that. It's been addition, right? It hasn't been, hey, come in here and learn how we do things. With the guys that we've brought in, whether it's those two guys, the Michigan guys, Erick and Cade, right? Seth Anderson's come in and joined us, Caleb Brown. We've had a lot of guys offensively, Nick on defense. I feel like they've added to what we have here. They've been able to come in and put their own spin on things and help us grow a little bit, which has been really pleasing.
That's great. Appreciate your time, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Have a great year.
Appreciate it.
Iowa hoping to kickstart its offense with some new blood, including a few high-profile transfers from the Big Ten East. Cade McNamara led Michigan to the college football playoff as the starter 2 seasons ago. He's joined by his former teammate, tight end Erick. Both of their 2022 seasons were cut short by injury. An ex-Buckeye hopping on board as well, and sophomore Caleb Brown. The 2 one-time Wolverines now with Howard.
Guys, thanks for taking some time to join me. Let's start at the top. Let's talk about the recruiting pitch you guys had for one another.
Well, I mean, I think I made my decision to come to Iowa before Erick did, and we've been really close friends ever since we got to Michigan. And once I decided to come here, I mean, I have a great understanding of the kind of dude Erick is, the type of player he is. So, of course, when I made my decision, for Iowa to have a player like Erick, of course, I wanted to make that, a statement of opinion and make sure that he knew that we wanted him.
Erick, is he a good recruiter? He clearly is. I guess that's a bad question, right? He did okay for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I always, when I decided that I was going to transfer, Iowa was the school I was mainly thinking about. But I just wanted to come into the portal and everything open-minded, and wanted to, give everybody a chance and not rush into a decision. But it just made the most sense here with Cade and the Hawkeyes, and very glad I made that decision for sure.
Erick, what's the process been like coming to Iowa and working out? What's that been like integrating yourself into what this Iowa team is really about?
It's been a struggle. I'm still struggling. Learning the different technique and what Coach wants us to do to get open and things like that. Just step by step each day, getting better. That's what I'm focusing on right now. And then as far as knowing the plays and stuff, that's just coming along with each day. It's growing on me, and it's definitely different. But when you're out here playing and having fun with a bunch of your brothers and stuff, it's easy, and they make it easy for me. So,
Cade, you come in with credit. You both do, but you come in with that credibility of being able to lead a team. Were guys picking your brain about how things were at Michigan, including the coaches? Was that part of the process as you start to continue to integrate yourself into the team?
I think really the guys just wanted to pick my brain on just kind of my opinion on how, some of the things that I observed when I first got here. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I took that really as just a huge compliment. I mean, for me to come in to a new program that I haven't done anything mm-hmm. yet, and then for them to have, the respect and really just being so welcoming that they actually cared about my opinion from the very beginning, I think for me that really meant a lot to me.
You walk into a tight end room that has a lot of history mm-hmm. of elite players. What does that mean to you? And I'm guessing that was part of the process of you choosing Iowa as well.
Honestly, man, I just was ready to go to work. And, I sat out a year. I've been playing South 4. I never sat out a season ever. So I was just ready to work and, been starving, ready to get out in the field and wouldn't rather do it with anybody else. The guys, we push each other. Coach Haji pushes us. He's coaching us nonstop on everything, anything possible. And that's what I love about it. And as far as the history, man, of the tight ends, it's great to be playing and representing them in the tight end room. But honestly, we just try to not worry about that as much because it could sometimes, put pressure on some people. Mm-hmm. And for us, we just don't. We're just having fun and living life.
Yeah,
having fun, catching balls, hitting people,
playing catch with your friends.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what we're doing.
Is there any added pressure for you, Cade, when you think about the struggles of the offense last year, or is that something neither one of you guys worry about and you're looking forward?
Yeah, I don't think it's something that neither of us worry about. I think, we both committed to a vision when we decided to come here and what we wanted the offense to look like and what Coach Brian, Coach Bud, and Coach Ferentz really had in mind. And really that's the only thing that we're worried about is just everything we can do to get better every single day to make sure that we're making the most out of this season.
Well, you teed it up for me, so I got to ask you about the vision. Tell me the vision.
We'll see about that.
Okay.
The vision, we want to win the Big Ten.
Okay.
We want to get in the playoffs, compete, and win the Natty, just like any other team would. But it's what we do throughout the day, the standard. We come out here, work hard, so don't take plays off. And when you're doing something, you're gonna mess up doing it full speed, stuff like that. If you see somebody doing something wrong, hold them accountable, and we feel like that's the stuff that's going to take us to the top. And when you got a bunch of guys that just love the game and love to come out here every single day, that's half the battle. And guys are ready to get out there and compete, and that's really the vision. That's the vision: get out there and compete, and game by game, come out on top.
Well, guys, I'm looking forward to seeing this connection back out on the field together. Good luck this season. Stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
If recent history is to be our guide, all might end up having a huge year in this offense. Iowa has truly become tight end U in the last 9 years, with Hawkeye tight ends leading the nation in receptions, receiving yards, and first downs in that span. In addition to all, Luke Lachey should make an impact after hauling in 4 TD grabs a season ago. Fellas, let's dive into this Iowa offense, and we obviously have to preface it by saying we didn't get a chance to see Cade McNamara today because he is banged up, so that's a huge piece of the puzzle here for the Hawks. That being said, what stood out as you watched?
Offensive line deeper and more athletic than I think it was a year ago, because they weren't up to the Iowa standard a year ago, I don't think, in the offensive line. I think the coaches would say that to us. There's no question the quarterback's the biggest issue, but when Cade comes back, Howard, you know this, you're less removed from the game than I am. It'll be an emotional boost. So it's bad news now that he hasn't been participating, but the positive is he'll give him a boost when he gets back because there's high expectations with him in the lineup.
Yeah, I think quite frankly, the day he decided he was coming to Iowa was a huge boost for this program because he's a proven winner, he's a proven leader. He's going to be able to add so much at the quarterback position, and I think that's going to give him a boost. But the most important part of what you said, I think, Coach, is that this offensive line is much better than they've been the last couple of years. And they were more physical today than I've seen them in a while, and this is a good defensive line that they're going against. So they're going to get better, and they're going to continue to do that. And not having your quarterback practicing all the time obviously sets your offense back a little bit, but I think they'll be able to quickly get up to speed.
I think the other thing is the psychology of the offensive unit. Brian Ferentz is the one that gets beat up publicly, but those players take that to heart. And they have a great relationship with Brian, and they don't like they don't like seeing that happen to him, but they also have a lot of pride too. They don't want people to think that this is only a defensive program and the offense is just kind of moving along. So I think you're going to see some psychology there where this offense is going to respond. They certainly look like they responded today, without Cade. And that's why I think when he comes back, it's going to be a boost. So there's good and bad news to this thing.
I'm with you guys. I thought some of the encouraging stuff happened along that line of scrimmage. We saw good against good a lot here today, and you certainly saw the offensive line win a lot of those battles. Erick is going to help them a lot. Luke Lachey is fabulous. Came up with big catch after big catch. Seth Anderson will help. Cade McNamara gets a lot of the hype, and justifiably so, and they need to be better at quarterback. There's no question. They need to be better, but there's some other pieces that are really good, and then you finally, I think, have a running back for the first time in a couple of years you feel really good about in Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, I think the running back group is going to continue to grow and get better, but yes, they can without a doubt play. But I think when you look at the tight end group, this is a really talented group because they can do so many things, right? They can inline block at the point of attack. Then all of a sudden they can spread out, and now they're going against the safety. They're going to win those battles most of the time, or a linebacker. They're going to win those battles. So those are going to be some encouraging things. You add Caleb Brown to that mix as well. He's going to give them a huge boost, I think, in special teams as well as offense. So the pieces are there. It's about execution. And really, I think you talk about the psychology of it. This is a hungry team, right? They're not where they wanted to be the last couple of years.
And that drill they do early in practice, they call blocks. O-line against D-line. I mean, that defines them. Yeah. It really does. They define themselves every day in practice with what they call blocks.
Yes, you're good at what you emphasize, right? And they certainly do emphasize the line play here in Iowa City. Kirk Ferentz earning plenty of praise from his players. A man who flat out knows how to win football games. 115 conference victories at the helm of the Hawks. The next one will move him past the legendary Amos Alonzo Stagg into sole possession of third place all time in the Big Ten, behind only Woody and Bo. Some pretty good company. And joined now by Kirk Ferentz, the head coach of the Hawkeyes. I know you're going to self-deprecate on this, but I need to ask you, when you see your name with Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler and Amos Alonzo Stagg, what goes through your head?
It's kind of strange, actually. It's not something I think about a lot. Friends of mine will bring it up occasionally, but like most coaches, you're just kind of looking at what's in front of you and maybe down the road a little bit, next 12 weeks or whatever, but it's really not something you think about, and it's just, I think, the byproduct of being around a lot of good people and being at a good place.
It's fascinating to me to kind of think back to when you got hired, right, and relatively unknown, coming from the NFL as an assistant, obviously had spent some time here before. The big question was, how do you pronounce the guy's last name? And now to think where you are, what do you think about, again, not saying it's over by any stretch, but what do you think about when you think about that journey?
I guess one advantage I had, I never had never had the ambition to be a head coach, so it wasn't like I had to do this. I enjoyed coaching the offensive line, so in fact that's really my retirement job, my dream retirement job, is coaching the line.
That's not actually retirement, Kirk. You understand that?
No, it would be. Believe me, yeah, it would be. A lot of things you have to worry about then, but but it was interesting. We were 2-18. It was like a body count with the media, Now 2-18 under Ferentz. So yeah, we've come a long way, but again, it's just it's one of those things. You just go to work every day and you try to do the best you can. And I just circle back, being here 30-plus years now, 2 different times. Commonality is that we get to work with great players. We've had great guys on our staff, and we work at a university that believes in stability, and the quality of life in our state's outstanding. So it's been a pretty good marriage, I think.
Well, let's talk about the players you're working with and what you've seen so far in camp. What do you feel best about at this point?
It sounds kind of strange because we graduated some outstanding guys last year and lost not only good players, but you look at our leadership, and that was my biggest concern last January, is that leadership base of what we lost. And I've just really been pleased with the way our guys have stepped up. A lot of guys on our football team are acting like leaders. They're walking the walk and doing a great job. And then we're probably a little bit more mature team. I know, it depends on the positions and all that, but I think just overall we're a little bit more mature as a football team. I think the guys have been focused and they're, they've been working hard, so we'll see where it all goes.
Is there a particular area where you feel like you've made the most progress here in camp?
I think our biggest one single area of improvements up front on the offense. The last 2 years, it's no secret, we just haven't been maybe as stout and as physical as we like to be. And it's ironic, you got the best center in the country in Tyler Linderbaum 2 years ago. But outside of that, we just haven't had we've had some injuries, some things to deal with, some unusual circumstances. But I think right now, first time in a couple of years now, we've got good competition. And I think we've got a bunch of guys that are a little bit more mature and a little bit more game ready. Instead of just going out and trying to survive, maybe we can execute the way we hope to.
And it has been an issue the last couple of years overarching on offense. No great secret there. And this offense has been under a great deal of scrutiny, and Brian's been under a lot of scrutiny. How challenging is that, particularly given that he's your son?
It's always challenging. Anytime anybody on your staff's under fire, if you will, or whatever. Not to use a media word, but I guess over the long haul, 20-plus years, we've believed in our people, and we try to work through issues and problems. And to me, they're all pretty traceable. You don't really have to be that smart to figure it out. And to me, it's more about what can we do to solve it. And it's like when we lose a game, everybody's got a million, observations, but I'm more interested in solutions, quite frankly. I think all of us are, and that's been our approach with this. So we're confident. We've got a good group of guys, and I think they're all committed to doing what it takes to win more games. And 8 was not, it's not terrible, but that's not the bar that we set, and we'll keep chipping away at it.
One of those solutions is to dip into the portal, and the headliner, of course, is Cade McNamara. Unfortunately, he's banged up here. We didn't get a chance to see him. First of all, what can you tell us about him injury-wise?
Fortunately, it's a tissue issue, so hopefully we'll be back sometime next week. I can't predict that. We'll take it week by week, but he'll be back, so it's not like he broke his leg. That's good news. He's been a great addition, and just not only he's a good football player, and we got to witness that live December 21. So we're all believers, certainly, and we watched him in film all season long. But now that he's been here for 8 months, he's just a tremendous young guy, great attitude, and he's got strong leadership traits.
You mentioned losing some star power off last year. A lot of that was on defense. Lost guys really at every level of that defense who were impact performers for you. Who are some guys who have stepped up here in camp who you think can play bigger roles maybe than they have in the past?
The linebacker is an easy position to talk about because you look at our two guys. You had Jack Campbell, as good as anybody in the country, at least in our opinion. And then Seth Benson, who, was a free agent, not a first-round draft pick. But you talk about an outstanding college football player. And so you got two guys there, the leadership, the production. Jay Higgins has just been rising each year in our program. And we're just so, we love the guy. He's a leader. He's a good football player and played a lot of good football for us last year. And this is where the portal kind of helped us. You pick up a guy like Nick Jackson, it's like coaching a 40-year-old guy. He's just really mature, really focused, got his degree from Virginia. Now he's working on his next one. And just, so you talk about the leadership void. That's I think we've addressed that, by bringing guys like Nick in, Rusty Feth on the offensive side, Cade, Erick all has been just super with us. So, feel good about the guys that had, and I think we got a lot of guys that we've have been in our program. I'm really excited to see how they perform this fall. It's been fun to watch them in practice and see the improvement that they've made.
What can you tell me about Noah Shannon, both in terms of his health and where things stand with the NCAA?
Health-wise, the good news is he's back working now. And this is the first week back. He had a pretty serious issue with his shoulder, so he's worked through that, and it's been a long road for him. And then on the gambling issue, the whole thing's very curious to me, quite frankly, the origin of it all. But that's a whole separate discussion. But the facts are that he participated and stepped forward back in July, removed himself from the Indy opportunity, and I think it says a lot about his personality and his character. Noah's a high character guy, 6-year guy. And, you talk about bringing new guys in, our 6-year guys, Joe Evans and Nico Regani. I mean, you can't get guys like that. So, we'll wait for the NCAA to make their ruling. Whatever they go with, that's what we'll go with. And we'll be here to get Noah back. And, he's a valued team member. I think all of us have the highest respect. One thing I really want to bring out for clarity, he did nothing illegal. Now, he broke an NCAA rule, and I'm not minimizing that. I did my deal in Indy. I'll do it again. I think that probably needs to be revisited. It's a whole different world than it was 3 years ago. And I think they signed the same form I did back at UConn 100 years ago. So it's probably time to take a little different look at that.
Last question for you, Coach. Biggest thing you need to get accomplished between now and kicking off the opener?
A million things. And so how long have I been doing this? I feel like it's the first year teaching school. I swear to God, every day I come in here so insecure. Like just, what are we forgetting? What are we missing? So, somehow, some way we'll figure it out. But, it's going to be a scramble drill here for 2 weeks.
Head coach of the Hawkeyes, Kirk Ferentz.
We
always appreciate your hospitality.
Likewise. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
The schedule for Ferentz and the Hawks starts with 3 straight non-conference games this year, all against teams that were under 500 a season ago. Conference play starts with a bang in Happy Valley. Rutgers and Michigan State are the other 2 crossovers. As for the matchups with the top West contenders, they play at Wisconsin, but host Minnesota and Illinois. Year in and year out, you can just count on Iowa being so solid defensively. Based on what we saw today, it doesn't seem like there's any reason to believe that isn't going to continue. What stood out as you watched Phil Parker's unit, Howard?
The fact that they do what they do best, take the football away, get their hands on the ball. They make so many. They make contested catches, force contested catches all the time. There's nothing going to be free. They're going to be aggressive at the point of attack. Those linebackers are going to be flying downhill. Sure, they're having to replace a special guy, but one of the things about this system, once you learn the system and understand what they're asking of you, you're able to fill in and be able to make plays in this defense.
A lot like the offense, right? The defensive line is deeper and better than it was a year ago, and it was good a year ago. And if you look at the linebackers as the quarterbacks, they lost their 2 linebackers, and it looks like they've done a really good job replacing them. So similar to the offense, they're strong up front, linebackers, offense, it's quarterback.
Nick Jackson, really talented transfer from Virginia.
Yes.
A huge impact. One of those guys who's all over the field. Were there areas that you were concerned about at all? Or, I mean, is your sense that they've kind of filled all of their holes?
I think they've got some work to do on the back end, more just working the scheme. Phil Parker does a lot of matchup zones, and people think it's really simple. It's really simple up front. It's not so simple in the back end. I think they just need some more reps of that. There weren't a lot of busts, but that's usually where the defense here at Iowa has to make sure that they're in the same page.
You start looking at how teams are going to try to attack. You're staying away from Cooper. You really don't want to mess with him. He's that good when you talk about being just a fluid athlete, and he's just so calm, right? And he runs well, he jumps well, he's just so athletic, but you never see him get too high or too low, and he's just steady. So you start to think about what's going to happen on the other side of the field, and I think they'll be fine ultimately, because I think they play inside of a system that is proven. So if you do your job and that's somebody else's job, then you'll be fine.
Howard, you mentioned system. I talked to Phil Parker about this, how he is excellence every year with the defense. And he said, same coaches, basically the same scheme, and they just continue to rep it and continue to improve within the scheme.
It's pretty amazing to think that in this day and age of high-flying offenses in college football, they did not give up more than 400 yards in any game last year. I mean, they are the model of consistency, and I don't think there's any reason to believe it's going to be any different this year. Death, taxes, and a good Phil Parker defense. Iowa in the top 7 in the nation in scoring D and total D in the decade plus that Parker has been running things in Iowa City. And no defense nationally has picked off more passes than the Hawks have in that span. Iowa allowed just under 4 yards per play last year. Not only was that the best in the nation, it was tied for the best over the last 10 years. Parker now with Jerry.
Coach, how have you maintained a level of excellence year in and year out with the Iowa defense?
Well, I think it all starts with consistency in the staff. I think our staff's been together for a long time. We're basically been in the same scheme for almost 20-some years when Norm Parker was here when I first got here in '99. And I think, having guys on our staff that played here, Kelvin Bell, also Seth Wallace was actually my GA back then for Norm, but he worked with me a lot. So we all kind of know what's going on and within our scheme and can make the adjustments and what our expectations have been for the last 7 or 8 years of what we expect our guys to do. And I think they're all bought in. I think we're some people may say we're a simple team, but there's so many little subtle adjustments that these linebackers and defensive line and in the back end have to know, and they got to have great communication. And I think the guys you get, they want to play the game of football, and I think they're how close they are and how they study the game.
So the scheme may not change a lot year to year, but how will this year's defense be different than last year's?
Well, there's probably be two linebackers missing in the middle. Obviously, Jack got a lot of pub and did a heck of a job, great player, and Seth Benson was a very smart kid. And then you lose a guy like Van Ness as a guy that's a really good playmaker. And so you had to replace those guys, and we went out and got Nick Jackson that we think is a really good player. He fits into our system, and I think he's growing every day, and we really like the way he goes about his progress of studying the game, and Coach Wallace is really pleased with the progress he's making, and I think everybody is. And I think there's some other guys, you look at Keith Fisher, another linebacker that hasn't played very much, but he's another guy that's in there. Jay Higgins, in my mind, he's kind of taken over from the leadership that, the other linebackers gave him when he was here. I mean, he's really doing a good job with the front.
Sounds like you're pretty satisfied so far with camp. What needs to be done between now and the opener?
Well, I think we have to be tested. Some of the guys that are going to be playing that might have an opportunity to get in there, we got to make sure that they're playing at the level the guys that left, and it's not the 2022 team, so it's the 2023. We got to make sure that we got to play to our standards, and we're always big into not giving up explosive plays. I think last year we gave up 15, which is probably the lowest that we gave up in a long time. We play a lot of zone matchup things. I think it gives us opportunities to get takeaways, and I think we've been pretty good on that. Anytime you get takeaways, and then, can you score? Can you score on defense? And I think guys are believing, and I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, we haven't played anybody. You're practicing against each other for a while, and it's time to camp the end and get on to your first opponent.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Always love watching your work.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Jay.
Cooper DeJean's recruiting came down to Iowa and South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits missed out on a good one. The junior from a small town in western Iowa has turned into one of the best corners in the country. The preseason Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year picked off 5 passes a season ago, bringing 3 back for scores. Here's DeJean with Howard.
Talk to me a little bit about being a part of this defense once again this year.
Yeah, obviously last year we were pretty successful as a defense, but it's all about upping the standard this year, and we got some holes to fill on the defensive side. Some great guys left, but they've taught those guys that are stepping in those roles now a lot. So we're looking forward to getting out there and showing people what we can do as a defense.
How's your role changed?
I'm just trying to be better than I was last year, a year ago. Some things that I have to work on that I thought I could have done better last year, and then just trying to fit in this defense wherever I can to help our defense be as successful as possible.
What are some of the things that you wanted to work on coming in?
Yeah, I feel like last year something that I wasn't too happy with was the way my press man defense. That's what I've been working on a lot this off season, and you got the older guys in the room, along with Coach Parker that have helped me with that, along with many other things. So it's been fun to learn from them and continue to grow.
What's it been like playing for Coach Parker? Because he's different, to say the least.
Yeah, it's
in a good way though.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think just how intense he is as a coach and as a competitor. He never wants to give the offense an inch. And that's the way we practice. You probably saw him out there on the field today. How competitive he is. So it's fun to play for a guy like that, a guy that loves to win and wants perfection.
I think one of the things that's interesting, for people, because you guys played so well defensively, and then the offense would have their struggles. What kept you guys together as a team and not say, "Oh, you guys got to get it going"? You're holding us back.
Yeah, we understand. You win as a team, you lose as a team, and no matter what's going on the offensive side of the ball and special teams, as a defense, we got to focus on what we can do to help this team, move forward and to win games. And that's something that we focused on a lot last year. Just stand together as a defense and as a whole group. And just focusing on what we can do to help this team.
Have you seen Cade come in and be the leader that he needs to be at quarterback? What's it been like?
Yeah, he's been great to have in our locker room. He's a great leader, very very vocal guy from day one. So he's fun to be around, not only on the field but off the field as well. I've gotten really close with him since he's come here. He's a really great guy to be around, and he's really up in our standard. I think he's brought a lot of confidence to our team and to the offensive side of the ball, and I can't wait to see what he can do.
Tell us about some of the young guys that are going to be able to help your guys that we don't know about from last year.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys saw Xavier Wampa in that bowl game. He's really grown over this past off season in the spring, and then Aaron Graves on the defensive line. We're pretty stacked on the defensive line, got a lot of depth, but he's one that's grown a lot, and those two guys I think will be really really helpful for our defense this season.
Well, continued success this year. Have a great year. Stay healthy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
As we wrap things up here from Iowa City with one stop left to go on our tour of the Big Ten, Dave, Jerry, and Howard back with you. final thoughts on what we saw, what stood out in our day with the Hawkeyes?
Last year they won 8 games. They lost to Michigan and Ohio State, 2 playoff teams that not everybody else in the West had to play. And during the offseason, it was a little bit of a negative narrative, right, because of the offense.
A little.
Yeah, I'm being kind, I know.
Yes.
But I think the offense is going to be better. And the other thing about the offense is many shortfalls as they had, they were playing complementary football to a really good defense. It's hard to win 8 games in the Big Ten, especially when Ohio State and Michigan are on your schedule. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will be a better team. I didn't think they were a bad team last year. They struggled on offense. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and I think after just watching them today, I mean, to me, they're back on the ascension of where this team, we're accustomed to seeing them, particularly with line play. And to me, that's really the most important thing when you're talking about Iowa football being strong at the point of attack. And I think they have everything that they need to take that next step. You talk about the psychology. You mentioned that earlier, and I think that's will be a big part of what this team needs to do. Health has got to be an important part. They got to be able to stay healthy. They've done an outstanding job of finding those players through the portal who can boost those areas where they've had some struggles or need to replace, some players. But I think they're there, and I kind of like where this team is right now.
Very few people on the ground today, and they were going hard. I mean, they weren't in full gear, but it was a full-speed practice.
Still a physical practice.
I remember one time in the blocks drill, there were a couple guys that went down. Other than that, they practiced this entire day on their feet. That's a sign of a good team and an athletic team.
It's interesting because you do talk about the negativity that surrounded the program, and it does feel like it's been somewhat internalized, right? I mean, I think they are here with something to prove this year, right? I mean, 5 losses, which at a lot of places, as you said, Jerry, I mean, that's not a catastrophe. That's the most losses since 2017 here, and that is not the standard, and everyone has kind of said that. And they have made moves that you make when you acknowledge that you've got to improve. The biggest one is they dip pretty heavily into the portal. This is not a place that has done that a lot. And we saw McNamara obviously is the high-profile one, but Seth Anderson will help a lot at wide receiver. You can kind of go down the list and see lots of contributions that will be made from players who played elsewhere a year ago. And so that's, I think, a tacit acknowledgement of, hey, we've got to get better. So there's no doubt that kind of that message has been received, right, whether it was an internal message or an external message, and they're making strides.
Yeah, if I was a fan of Iowa, I would not underestimate the fact that coaches and players have taken the criticism during the offseason personally, and they will respond maybe like they never have before. But I just get the sense watching today's practice that they're into it.
And let's think about this, right? For all their struggles offensively, they were still able to bring in players through the portal who are going to help this team immensely. And they will tell you it's the vision that they were told and discussed about where this program needed to go offensively that they bought into. So they obviously watched film. They couldn't have been that far away.
Could I add impressive portal additions?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Look, this was the second highest scoring offense in the Big Ten in 2020. They're not that far removed from having offensive success. It will dictate how much success they have as a team this year, no doubt about it. Really fun day here in Iowa City. Thanks as always to everyone here who helped us out. Guys, one last trip. 190 miles from here as we check out the Badgers in their first year under new head coach Luke Fickell. We will be there on Saturday. Thanks so much for watching here from Iowa City on the Big Ten Network.
Good.